10 rando magic cards rated, day number 127. Just want to make sure I was right. Had to look down for a second. First card of the day on a beautiful Wednesday morning. Or, I don't know, maybe it's a gloomy Wednesday morning. We'll try to make it a little bit better for you. With Stinkweed Imp. Baby, Stinkweed Imp's so good, dude. Ravnica. Originally printed in Ravnica. One of the best sets of all time, and maybe Stinkweed Imp's part of that. This is 3 mana, 2 and a black for a 1/2 Imp with flying. It has Death Touch, basically, you know, kind of. Whenever it deals combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature. Note how they did not, in Oracle text, give it Death Touch. It still has exactly that wording. Also, Dredge 5. So, you don't know what that means. It's why the card is good. If you would draw a card, instead, you may put exactly 5 cards from the top of your library into your graveyard. If you do, return this card from your graveyard to your hand. Otherwise, just draw the card instead. So it's like a replacement effect. If you'd rather draw this as your card for the turn, for instance, then you can forego drawing that card, mill 5 cards, and then get this back into your hand. It doesn't seem that great, right? Now, one thing this actually does in like limited and even in standard, you know, I saw this do this in standard and modern a few times because the card was modern playable. It's a flyer with Death Touch that you can get back like every turn if need be. And that is just kind of good by itself. But what it actually does is mill 5 just about every turn. Sometimes multiple times in a turn, right? Because like you'll dredge it up, put it in your hand, and then you'll discard it, and then you'll try to draw another card some other way besides your draw step, and you'll get to dredge 5 again. Golgari Grave Troll is banned in Modern, I believe, and it dredges 6 cards. And like the whole reason the card is good is because it dredges 6. This dredges 5 and is playable in Modern. This is an all-star in the Dredge deck, and the Dredge deck was, from my understanding, it might still be a force in Modern, I'm not sure, but for a long time it was one of like the most feared forces in the Modern metagame, and Stinkweed Imp was a big part of that. It was playable in Standard, but the card's legacy followed it into multiple other formats. Legacy, when I say legacy, I mean the format too. The card is playable just about everywhere at some point or another in its career, its history. So I have to rate this like really highly. This is one of those cards like unassuming when you first read it, and someone will eventually school you on why it is insane. Card is very good. So. Very sweet first card of the day, man. That hopefully is a good omen moving forward. I'm going to give Stinkweed Imp a 7.8. And I mean like every point of that with my full chest and throat, dude. If you don't know how good Stinkweed Imp is, I think some people that do know how good it is are going to be like, dude, this card's like an 8.5. But I don't think we quite approach that bar. But I think we definitely get close to 8 with a Stinkweed Imp. It's really only good in like the one deck, but that deck has been playable in every format it's touched. And a large part of that is Stinkweed Imp. Again, the card that dredges one more card than this is banned. So I don't know what that tells you other than like Stinkweed is a really freaking good magic card. And for what it's worth, I've seen people actually like attack and block more, especially block with Stinkweed Imp than they ever did with Grave Troll. Right. So that's just my experience, but we got to move on here to Smelting Vat from the Brothers War Commander. This is 4 mana for an artifact. You can pay 1, tap it, and sack another artifact to reveal the top 8 cards of your library. Put up to 2 non-creature artifact cards with total mana value less than or equal to the sacrificed artifact's mana value from among them onto the battlefield. The rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Man, this was neutered into the ground, wasn't it? At one point, some version of this you'd think would just put the things onto the battlefield, but nope. We decided they had to be non-creature artifacts. We decided they had to be just artifacts, which makes sense because Smelting Vat. They have to be non-creature artifacts, and they have to have total mana value less than the thing you sacrifice. So that means you have to sacrifice like a 5 or 6 drop or something. And you can't sacrifice this because it says sack another artifact. This is not very good. And I've seen this card. I've got the Brothers War Commander set, and I've seen this card. It's just that maybe I never really took notice of it because it's maybe I read it once and was like, ew. It's just way too many restrictions on this, but I guess maybe you sack your Darksteel Colossus and you can put like a 6-drop and a 5-drop non-creature artifact onto the table and shuffle Darksteel back in. Like there's tricks with it, but it's still just kind of again like neutered, like for lack of a better word. It really like nerfed this into the ground. So I'm going to give it a 4.4, and that might be a little bit low or it might be a little bit high. I don't really see you doing too much with this that's literally broken, because they've put so many like different checks in place that you have to pass to make it broken, and it's kind of hard to do that at this point. So I don't know. I don't want to sack like an 8-drop artifact to get 2 4-drop non-creature artifacts. Seems bad. But we'll move on to Cling to Dust. There's probably something broken you can do with that card, by the way. There's probably something broken. You win the game in Commander, but I think it's probably not going to happen too often. Cling to Dust is from Theros Beyond Death. I remember this card being pretty good. This is a single black mana for an instant. Exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a creature card, you gain 3 life. Otherwise, you draw a card. It's also escapes for 3 and a black and an exile of 5 other cards from your yard. So not bad. So in other words, you can cast the card from your yard by doing that, by paying 4 and exiling 5 from your yard. Yeah, instant speed is pretty good on this. Exile a card from a yard and draw a card. Just a single black mana to draw a card is kind of okay. And you'll take the life gain sometimes too, but you know, instant speed, 1 mana, draw a card, and especially like mess with whatever your opponent's trying to do with their graveyard at that moment. You know, they target a guy in their graveyard with a reanimator spell. And you're like, no, take that play away and draw a card for a single mana at instant speed. That's good. That's pretty good. Cling to Dust was one of those kind of sleepers that saw a little bit more and more play as time went on, and actually had a place in main boards for a while there, and at least in best of 1. So I'm going to give, and sideboards in best of 3. So I'm going to give Cling to Dust like a 4.86. Like it was playable there for a while. I'm not sure that it still is great like anywhere, but there was a time where this card was like surprisingly decent. So it's probably too high. Scape Shift is up next from Morning Tide. This card is no less than $20 to buy anywhere. $4. 4 mana, 2 and 2 green for a sorcery. Sack any number of lands. Search your library for that many land cards. Put them into play tap. Shuffle your library. So you see how broken that is, right? See how broken it is, right? Most people can tell first time they read Scape Shift that it's a pretty disgusting Magic card. It is legal in Pioneer, where it doesn't do all the things, but it has had a couple of decks over the last year or so. But yeah, this has done probably the most work in Commander, I would say. You know, and again, there's been modern decks based on Scape Shift in the past. I believe there's even been like Legacy Shift decks, if I'm not remembering that incorrectly. But I think Legacy was one of the better formats for it for a second there. But I don't want to get my lines crossed. I know that Scape Shift has been an important card in basically every format that has been playable in, you know. So there is that. Scape Shift is good, obviously, for like landfall decks, right? But it also lets you search for any number of whatever, search for whatever land you want to, not just basics. And that can be extremely broken too, depending on what land you're playing or what your setup is or what combo you're trying to enact. So Scape Shift just does so many things, not even just for strictly land-centric decks. Again, sometimes it'll help put a specific combo in place. Sometimes you can, tap the lands for mana to help cast Scape Shift, and then put the lands into play untapped, right? I know it says tapped, but there are multiple ways to either untap the lands or make sure they come into play untapped. So Scape Shift is good for that too. It's just crazy, crazy, crazy Magic card here. Lord. 8.3 for Scape Shift, I think, is where I want to be with this bad boy. We're getting some heavy hitters today, aren't we? Jeez. Hope it doesn't calm down, because these are good. Although I do want your opinion, like what do you think Scape Shift is? But I don't think it's any lower than an 8.3. That said, I really don't think it's any higher, but that's the point of rating cards. Let's move on to Serpent Skin from Champions of Kamigawa. This is 3 mana, 2 and a green for an enchant creature. You may play Serpent Skin anytime you can play an instant, so it has flash. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1, and you can pay a green mana to regenerate it. So 4 mana to save it, the creature, the turn that you play this, which is not amazing. I think there's just better ways of doing that. But it's not terrible. It's save the creature the turn that you play this, but it's also save the creature on subsequent turns and like trigger an enchantress effect when you play this. Like there's definitely spots this could go in. So I will actually give this a 4. No, let's go 3.9 on this. I want to put it firmly into like the 3 territory, But I do want to stress, like, there are good things about this, and like just the right, like green-white, like Sithis or something, like an Enchantress deck. It's not bad. Next is Elusive Spellfist from Dragons of Tarkir. 2 mana, 1 and a blue for a 1/3 human monk. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Elusive Spellfist gets +1/+0 till end of turn and cannot be blocked this turn. A limited all-star in this environment. Just a very good card in that environment. And even, I actually saw this in standard from time to time because it was pretty good in like budget decks. It ended up in a few of my budget decks that I put on the channel around that time. Because sometimes Elusive Spellfist would be 2 mana and it would account for, 8 plus total damage in a game. And if you get multiple copies of it, it seems to be, really, really good. Even nowadays, like with something like if this was in standard, like comboing it with like Monstrous Rage or something, make sure that you get through for a buttload of damage. So I still like Spellfist. I really do. 4.19 for this guy, because I don't think he's going to make any like constructed decks or anything. I don't think he's going to make too many commander decks, but in a way, this is one of the more legendary commons in its limited environment of like any any common from the last like 5 years. It's like I played some Dragons Limited. I was still going up to the card shop and playing Limited a good bit at that point. When we like first started the channel, in the first like year of us starting the channel, the card shop was still like in swing. You could actually go up there on a Saturday and catch a draft. And I played some Dragons Draft, and Elusive Spellfist, man, wow. And like you look at all the analysis online, after a couple of weeks, people would talk about like, dude, you got to pick this card. So again, I want to give it the honorary 5, and I'm not going to go all the way there, but I will give it like an almost playable 4.19, like we're getting there. But moving on to Grave Consequences here from Judgment, and only Judgment. This is 2 mana, 1 and a black for an instant. Each player may remove any number of cards in his or her graveyard from the game. Then each player loses 1 life for each card in his or her graveyard. And then you get to draw a card. So this is probably not going to do the thing you want it to do, Also interesting, probably the most interesting thing about the card is that usually Greg and Tim Hildebrandt do their artwork together for Magic the Gathering. This time it's just Timmy. Just Tim Hildebrandt. But still, it doesn't really matter. It's 2 mana to draw a card at instant speed. So it cycles. It's like the best thing about the card is that it cycles. It's actually kind of not great if you want to do anything with your graveyard, because, if you want to leave cards in your yard, it'll actually hurt you. But it's not exile your opponent's graveyard. Like, again, they might take some damage, but they get to leave the relevant stuff in their yard. It's just not like that great. You know what I mean? So I'm actually going to give this like a 1.21. I think it's almost actively bad. Like we're getting towards actively bad here. There's just a million better ways to nerf graveyards, But we'll move on to Debtor's Transport. This is from Ravnica Allegiance. It is 6 mana, 5 and a black for a 5/3 Thrall with Afterlife 2. So when it dies, you get 2 1/1 flyers. Not good. It's very, very drafty dude here. I do like the death trigger. I like getting like more bodies than I originally had. It's all good. But 1.9 on this guy. We're accounting for the presence of heavy hitters earlier in the video. Let's look at Daring Skyjack next from Gate Crash. This is 2 mana, 1 and a white for a 3/1 human knight with Battalion. Without looking, do you remember what Battalion is? You don't. Whenever it and at least 2 other creatures attack, Daring Skyjack gains flying till end of turn. So 3 guys have to attack to trigger Battalion. This guy will get flying. So a 2 mana 3/1, sometimes flying if you're aggressive enough. Again, very drafty dude, but I will give him a 2. 2 mana 3/1 flyer is not the worst rate in the entire world. And then final card of the day apparently is Nostro Voice of the Crags. I've never seen this card in my entire life. This is from Commander Legends. 4 mana, 1 in Jeskai. So 1 blue, red, white for a 3/3 legendary chimera. We are on rocky ground. And I don't just mean the art. I mean a 4 mana 3/3 that you have to pay a bunch of colors for. Woof. Tap it. Choose 1. X is the number of spells you've cast this turn. Okay, so we're storming. Scry X, or Nostro deals X damage to a creature, or you gain X life. So the middle one is the best one. Pretty easily. The scrying is fine. Scrying is whatever. Gaining life is, sometimes you want to do it. But the middle one's the best one. But like to make it good, I have to at least cast like 2 to 3 spells to get a bolt out of this, and I gotta tap it. It's like, I don't know, dude. I don't know. I guess like I've said a million times, I like a unique commander. And sometimes I like when commanders, I just kind of use this to ding the card, but to make, because it makes it harder to cast. But, it's a commander that lets you play 3 different colors. And that's typically pretty good in a commander. It's not like too expensive, right? It's 4 mana. You probably pay that. So I guess it's kind of neat to think about building around. But this looks like one of those that you're going to build around. And it's like not going to be very good. You're going to wish you build something else. So I hope I don't make anybody upset. Like I hope Nostro is not like your favorite commander. Around 1.3 to 5K people watch these videos, give or take. So I hope that like 1 out of 1,500 people don't love this card and I just completely alienate them. But I think this is like pretty terrible in some ways. It's modal, sort of, right? You can do 1 of 3 things, and I do like the versatility, but despite some of the things that would normally raise this price, this card's like stock to me and like made me give it a 5 or something, I think that I'm actually going to give it like a 4.6. I think that this is one of those cards that's kind of like, play me, aren't I good? And then it's kind of not. You have a bad experience. I just don't trust it. So despite the amazing creature type, I love chimeras. I think I'm gonna go like 4.6 actually. Let's go like 4.6. Because I think that even then I'm honestly rating the card slightly too high. I really do think I am. I think it's more like a 4.2, but I don't want to be wrong. But I am wrong all the time. I don't know why I'm worried about it here. Who cares? Anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye. I gotta actually press record over here to end the video. Bye.